Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I, like others, start by paying tribute to His Majesty for delivering his first King's speech. It was clearly a historic moment, but I think for our King it must have been quite an emotional moment. He made reference to his late mother, our late amazing Queen, and I think many of us, in listening to him, felt he delivered that speech with grace and aplomb, and we are very grateful to him. Can I also pay tribute to the Right Honourable Member for Scarborough and Whitby and the Honourable Member for Stroud for their speeches. I've always rather admired the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Member for Scarborough, for many reasons. His speech today was extremely entertaining, but I've always liked the fact that he, like many of us on these benches, opposed the third runway at Heathrow, and the fact that he was a constructive, if unfashionable, Conservative in his views on a constructive relationship with our European partners. But perhaps what makes him more at home with the current government, after all, is his romantic enthusiasm for the steam engine, as we have heard. More noise than substance and going nowhere in the modern world. Mr. Speaker, my mother-in-law, an expert beekeeper, honey producer, and the swarm officer for North Dorset, no less, would join the seconder of today's motion in congratulating Stroud for being the world's first bee guardian town. I'm sure Stroud has a real buzz about it. But the House will be pleased that I don't intend to drone on and on. And Mr. Speaker, given your strictures at the beginning of this debate, I would like to clarify I was not referring to any other members in talking about droning on. Mr. Speaker, today's humble address is overshadowed by horrifying events around the world. The monstrous terrorist attacks by Hamas on Israel 1 month ago. Over 1,400 Israelis slaughtered, hundreds taken hostage. They are in our thoughts today. And now the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. Innocent Palestinians cut off from food, water and medicine, their homes destroyed, over 10,000 killed. And war on our continent too, as the brave Ukrainian people continue to resist Vladimir Putin's war machine. At times of global crisis like this, the UK can be a force for good when it stands tall in the world. But, Mr. Speaker, the British voice can only be at its strongest when we have a government that is strong and a government that is united. And I'm afraid that is sadly lacking now. As the humble address shows, we don't even have a government strong and united to take real action here on the challenges people face at home. For these are very, very tough times for the British people. They're working hard, showing remarkable decency and strength. People are finding it harder and harder just to make ends meet. Instead of helping, what has this out-of-touch Conservative government done in this King's speech and over the last few years? They put up taxes. They put up energy bills and mortgage payments too, adding to the pain instead of soothing it. Just look at energy in particular, Mr. Speaker. Today, the government could have brought forward plans to ensure Britain's energy security and bring down energy prices, sustainable energy price cuts for the long term. The government could have announced plans to insulate homes to cut people's energy bills, to invest properly in cheap, clean, renewable energy for the future. Instead, the Conservatives are choosing once again to shackle us to the expensive, dirty fossil fuels of the past. Mr. Speaker, today's address is yet more proof that this is a government that simply doesn't care. Just last week, the COVID inquiry heard that during the pandemic, the government thought older people should just accept their fate. A callous approach that reveals an attitude that stretches far beyond the pandemic. By failing to address the cost of living crisis, the NHS and care crisis, or the sewage crisis and many other crises like them, This King's Speech essentially tells families and pensioners struggling to get by to accept their fate. This government is telling the pensioner waiting weeks to see her GP to accept her fate. It tells the cancer patient waiting months just to start treatment to accept his fate. It tells the communities seeing their rivers polluted and their countryside destroyed to accept their fate. It tells the British people fed up with being taken for granted by an out-of-touch government to accept their fate. But, Mr. Speaker, whatever this government might want, the people of our great country, the British people, have never been ones to sit back quietly and accept their fate. They won't accept a government that is so weak and so divided that it cannot tackle the country's challenges. They won't accept a Conservative Party that is out of touch and out of ideas. They will kick it out of office. And they will get that chance soon. Because no matter how long the Prime Minister delays it, an election is coming. So the British people don't have to accept the miserable fate of this tired Conservative government. They can choose a better future, and, Mr. Speaker, I believe they will.